big statement that has come in from Israel. The Israeli Defence Minister Israel Katz warned that Israel could be at war with Iran tomorrow if Tehran launches missiles at Israeli territory. This was during an official press briefing to select Israeli reporters. Katz warned that the IDF has been ordered to prepare for an independent Israeli operation against Iran if needed. Katz claims that Israel will forcefully retaliate if Iran launches missiles, further saying that this message has already been delivered to US officials. Speaking to the military and diplomatic journalists in a press briefing, Katz emphasized that Israel refuses to accept any scenario where it comes under direct Iranian fire. He then confirmed that the Israeli military has already designated their targets and have selected their targets in Iran and remains on high alert to execute immediate strikes. He further adds that hostilities could resume within 2 days, and his directive to the IDF is to prepare for a blue and white operation in Iran. Now, this is pertinent to note. By blue and white, Katz meant an Israeli-led operation. Those are the colors of the Israeli national flag. This is an Israeli-led operation rather than one dependent on outside forces. And this is where that question arises. Can Israel take on Iran without the US? Can Israel fight Iran by itself? Katz said that Iran still has a missile stockpile and the ability to launch it, but argued that Israel's offensive capabilities could quickly suppress fire. When asked whether the US would join Israel if Iran attacked, the defense minister did not directly answer that. He responded by saying that the defensive partnership with the US exists, but if Iran attacks, Israel will act with force without any conditions being applied. All right. To discuss this further, I'm now being joined on the broadcast by Alon Pinkas, former Consul General of Israel in New York and former Israeli ambassador. Mr. Pinkas, thank you so much for making time joining me here on the broadcast. Can Israel take on Iran without America's help?
Thank you, Shivan. The short answer is no, but it needs further elaboration and explanation. Yeah, Israel has the capacity to hit Iran, and Mr. Katz has the capacity and the tendency to make reckless statements like the one you quoted from extensively. But the issue is both political and military. Let's start with the military. Israel needs U.S. munitions. Israel needs U.S. interceptor missiles. Israel needs jet fuel. And Israel needs military intelligence. All of the above are supplied primarily by the United States. So militarily, yeah, Israel could strike Iran if struck, but with very limited effectiveness. Now comes the broader question, Shivan, of the political implication, of the political dimension. While the U.S. is negotiating with Iran, whether that leads to an agreement or not, but at least during the period where these negotiations are held, there's no way in the world that Israel would attack Iran while these negotiations are going on. It is just not, it's, again, like I said before, it's a reckless, unnecessary statement.
Mr. Pinkas, let me just counter that. Whatever we've seen so far, we understood that any fighting in Lebanon was important to be stopped for this deal to be pursued further between US and Iran. But the fighting in Lebanon has not stopped. It continues even now. Ceasefire after ceasefire after ceasefire, time and again, US President saying Israel is prohibited, yet the fighting continues. Not taking away the fact that Hezbollah has also been firing at Israel, but the fighting still continues. Iran has made it clear that Lebanon needs to be included in the ceasefire. When the fighting has not stopped there, what is to say that Israel will not go after Iran if there is any intermittent threat that is felt, because it's time and again made clear that for Netanyahu to remain in government, this war needs to continue? Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree. And what you said is absolutely accurate, Shivan. For many years, Mr. Netanyahu said that Iran and Lebanon is the same front. It's the same theater. There is a Shiite extremist axis centered in Tehran that has proxies the largest and most effective of which is Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now that the Iranians are saying that Lebanon is part of the deal, Israel is calling, crying foul and saying, no, no, no. Lebanon is actually a separate and distinct theater, and we need to maintain freedom of operation in Lebanon, irrespective of what goes on between the U.S. and Iran. The Iranians are saying no. The U.S., anxious to get a deal with Iran, is trying to pressure Israel to restrain itself in Lebanon. But as you pointed out correctly, there is a succession of ceasefires, and yes, none of them have until now worked, but we haven't seen, at least until now, Shivan, we haven't seen a broad escalation. So the Iranians have no reason to stop the talks with the U.S. because of what's going on in Lebanon, because it hasn't expanded beyond local, very unfortunate, but nonetheless local incidents. Now, as for the last sentence of your comment, for Netanyahu to stay in power. Look, we have an election. Israel is scheduled to hold an election in October. Mr. Netanyahu's position and situation in the polls is very bad. In no poll can he form a government. And I'm talking about not last week, I'm talking about the last 2 or 3 months. There is a cumulative effect of military and strategic failures in Gaza and Lebanon, and most importantly and crucially, in Iran. In order to somehow have a chance in the election, Netanyahu, as you pointed to, needs to maintain a permanent state of war, which is what he's trying to do in Lebanon.
I hear your point. I hear your point,
please.
Mr. Pinkas. Let me also bring in the American aspect there. And let me present a perspective to you. Give me your thoughts after that. Do you feel Iran has emerged more emboldened and stronger, perception-wise as well, and on the battlefield ever since Feb 28th? And let me just substantiate, because they fire at will at Gulf nations. They fire and they claim that the Strait of Hormuz is theirs now to be controlled. It will never go back to pre-war levels. And this was never the narrative or never the deal before Feb 28th. Has Israel and US, have they bitten off far more than they could chew? Have they emboldened Iran by actually answering that question, what would happen if they went into a direct conflict with Iran? Because now the world has seen that Iran did not back off.
Exactly. And yes, the answer is unfortunately, sadly, but the answer is yes. Iran of June 29th is stronger geopolitically, with a greater ability to project power than Iran of the 28th of February. Remember where Iran was on the 28th of February. It was isolated. It was under strict sanctions in terms of oil exports. It did not have formidable allies, and it was still reeling from the military setbacks of June 2025, round 1 of this war. And now look at Iran of the 29th or 30th rather of June. Today's is 30th of June 2026. Iran has found a strategic instrument, a huge leverage in the Gulf of Hormuz. It attacked the Arab Gulf countries, as you mentioned correctly, something that neither Israel nor the U.S. expected to happen. It shut down Hormuz, something that Israel and the U.S. did not expect to happen. There was no regime change. The Iranian nuclear program is still being negotiated, and it's been deferred beyond the 60-day period of the Memorandum of Understanding. What worries Israel almost as much is Iran's ballistic missile production and launching capabilities that have not even been mentioned in the Memorandum of Understanding. So yes, for the time being, I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. Iran is still politically fragile and economically weak. But for the time being, at this moment in time, Shivan, Iran is stronger today than it was before the war. And that translates immediately and logically to an American and Israeli failure. Again, sadly, unfortunately, but that's the reality.
I hear your point. Mr. Pinkas, regime change was one of the initial objectives. It was made clear. Donald Trump said it. Iranian people, go and claim your government. Do you foresee a situation that the Iranians remain where they were by the end of this year and the regimes, the governments in Israel and America end up changing?
Yes, I mean, not in America, because the election there is only in November.
Midterms will hold sway, sir. The midterms will hold sway, and that is a clock ticking backwards for Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly in Israel, there's a very high likelihood that the government will change, although a different government's policy on Iran may not be that different. In America, you may see the Democrats win the House of Representatives, and conceivably, at least they have a 50% chance of winning also the Senate, which would incapacitate and really constrict what the president is able to do. While in Iran, there's no regime change. Look, to begin with, Shivan, the premise that you can affect or induce or instigate a regime change from the air through missiles and F-35s was unfeasible. It only happened once in history, in Japan in 1945, and that was with the use of 2 atomic bombs, with a credible threat of a major American invasion to Japan, and then Japan surrendered. That was the only case in history where aerial power, including those 2 atomic bombs, caused some form of regime change. It hasn't happened anyplace else. The U.S. was not committed to a major ground operation in a costly, very expensive war in Iran, obviously. And so President Trump did the only thing he had, he needed to do and could do, and that is cut his losses, which is why on April 8th, he announced the ceasefire. Israel, since then, has been very disappointed by regime change. Look, Israel, we incapacitated, we decapitated, not incapacitated, we decapitated the Iranian leadership. Instead, what we got was a more hardline government. We thought there would be an uprising because of the economic conditions. Instead, you get an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, that allows Iran to export oil and allows Iran to tap into $25 billion worth of its own frozen assets throughout the world that have been under strict sanctions by the Americans and indeed the international community. So I don't see a regime change, and I don't see any popular uprising in Iran at this moment.
I hear your point.
Things could happen in 2 years, but who knows? Right now, I don't see it.
I hear your point. Earlier in the year, there was an uprising in Iran, and Iranians were killed in that uprising by the Iranian government itself. And there are figures that suggest that the death toll then was more than the death toll during or after Feb 28th till now as the war continues. So we'll need to wait and watch how this one pans out. Iran is clearly setting the terms when they come to the negotiating table, really disagreeing with anything that comes in from the US. Donald Trump has also issued a certain amount of dismay regarding whether the talks in Doha now, scheduled for this week, are going to be productive or consequential. Let's wait and watch. Mr. Pincus, absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining me here on the broadcast.
Thank you, Shivan. Pleasure.